I once believed that the more habits I worked at, the better person I would become. But I was wrong. When I started being honest with myself, I quickly discovered that quality over quantity is a way better approach to building habits. And so the only thing I want to discuss today are the 5 micro habits that I decided to prioritize and have stuck to for the last couple of years. All I ask is that you consider this list and implement those that you believe will significantly impact your life. Let's dive in. Now, I have had a terrible relationship with being extremely hard on myself over the years. Everything from sports to corporate America to content creation. I mean, I once took the idea of being your own worst critic to a whole new level. And so I made a promise to myself to cut the negative self-talk. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm perfect because I'm not. I'm human and I believe that it's okay to be human. However, whenever I do need to self-critique, I do so without allowing my self-critiquing to cripple me. And I'm going to do my best to try and explain how I've managed to do this. Okay. The biggest shift I've had to make, and I believe there are so many people that can learn from this as well, is learning to relate self-criticism to an action I'm taking rather than at myself as a person. And I wish I learned this much sooner in life. I really do. As a teenager and a young adult, this would have been great. But I'm grateful that I figured it out now rather than later. So what does this look like for me as an everyday practice, and what can you take from it? And the primary thing has been reducing the time I spend thinking. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, how does that work? Because we're always thinking. Now, I wrote an article detailing this relationship between thoughts and thinking, and I'll leave a link to it in the description below in case you want to read it. But as someone who overthinks a lot, whenever I'm thinking deeply or too much about my content creation process, as an example, and how I'm going to go from an idea to recording and then posting that final conversation, like this one you're currently watching, that's when I start to become overly critical of myself. And the self-criticism begins to veer off towards negative self-talk. Now, like I said, I've had to learn to relate self-criticism to an action I'm taking rather than at myself as a person. And in this case, that action is the fact that I'm thinking too much. So I've had to create a non-thinking environment for myself by removing thinking triggers and simplifying my content creation process and a few other things. But that's the lesson I want you to take from this. See, what can you do regardless if overthinking or self-criticism or negative self-talk is an issue for you or not? But what can you do in general to create an environment that supports the habits or the micro habits that you want to prioritize? So when creating a non-thinking environment, I've had to remove thinking triggers or triggers in general that would repeatedly push me down this path of overthinking and unnecessary self-criticism. And to do this effectively, my relationship with productivity had to change. Now, I've opened up before about my experience with burnout. And since recovering from that emotional roller coaster, I've decided that I refuse to destroy my mental health in the name of productivity. And even more so now, as a husband and a father, there are so many other things in life that are far more important than trying to optimize everything for the sake of productivity. So I started slowing down, and it has been the best decision I have ever made. Now, slowing down doesn't mean being lazy or unproductive, for the lack of a better expression. Instead, the notion of slowing down has taught me the importance of prioritizing. See, I believe many of us struggle internally with this idea of FOMO, the fear of missing out, which creates this self-dialogue we feed ourselves about needing to be and do everything all at once, which is just not possible and it's definitely not healthy either. Now, there are a couple of things that I do to support my efforts of slowing down. And this is the information that I want to encourage you to apply to your life if it resonates. So when it comes to prioritizing, I've given myself a daily question I need to answer. And that question is, what has my attention, and have I consciously recognized it as something important to me? What has my attention, and have I consciously recognized it as something important to me? See, before we can prioritize what matters, we have to get clear on our core values, because our values dictate the road we travel in life. And that road is paved by the things that are important to us. But how do we determine what's important, right? See, the answer to that question is focus. Because whatever we consciously choose to focus on, we're also categorizing that thing as important. The perfect metaphor for this is driving. Whenever you're driving your car, you're focused on the road ahead of you and you're aware of the cars and traffic around you. However, the moment you end up distracted by the radio or the music or your phone, in a split second, things can change and you'll find yourself off course or in an accident. See, focus is another way to think about prioritizing, because focus allows us to ignore what's not important and devote our attention to what is. Now, on the other end of the scale, I've had to learn how to sustain a healthy relationship with productivity. Because as I briefly mentioned, I refuse to destroy my mental health in the name of productivity. And so the best piece of advice that I can offer here, in case this is something you're also concerned with, is that productivity is not about doing more in less time. Instead, it's about creating systems or a routine that encourages intentional behavior. So for me, that means eliminating things off of my plate, like a true minimalist. But it also means delegating where I can, simplifying as much as possible. Like the example I gave you where I mentioned that I'm simplifying my content creation process. But it's also learning when it's time to pivot and make a change. You know, I've witnessed many people give so much of themselves to things that didn't necessarily align with their values or the life that they would much rather live. And so I made a commitment to not travel that path several years ago. And what I did instead is I started taking small steps in daily effort toward a more meaningful career. So I got crystal clear on my values and the type of work that I wanted to do first and foremost. And around 2018, I was 3 years out of college. I was working in corporate America, doing everything I thought I wanted to do. But my ambition shifted from career to values oriented. And I can't really put a sentence on the feeling I had, but rather than chasing career achievements, I became obsessed with creating a life that allowed me to put my family first, prioritize my values, and pursue a career that inspired me. And so this habit of making daily effort toward a more meaningful career started firing on all cylinders. And what I did next sounded absolutely crazy to most of the people I talked to. And so what I did is at 26 years old, this was 2019, I paid off all of my debt, which was $23,000, and I paid it off in 12 months. I was very aggressive. And what was crazy about this is that I decided to sacrifice a year's worth of spending money on experiences and what some would consider enjoying life while you're young to become 100% debt free. And this took a lot of intentional effort, of course, and a huge mindset shift, but it moved me closer to being able to prioritize a more meaningful career because I didn't owe anyone anything. And I no longer had the additional monthly payments that I also had to account for within my income. Now, a few years later, in October 2023, I was blessed to be in a position to be able to quit my job and focus on a more meaningful career full time. And then now fast forward to today, that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, I do want to add an additional thought here that I encourage you not to skip over. Pursuing a meaningful career doesn't always mean quitting your job and building a business. What it does mean is that you are doing work that allows you to prioritize your values, put your family first, and give more of yourself to what you care about, regardless of the type of work you're doing. And so the question I have for you before I continue on with this conversation is this. What steps are you taking daily to move you toward a more meaningful career? I'd love to talk about it, so let me know down in the comment section below. All right, I have a bit of a bone to pick with the self-development space because there is a ton of emphasis put on the idea of learning new things. Educate yourself to better yourself. Now, I'm not speaking down on that because I agree with it. In fact, I believe that we should carry ourselves as a student of life and learn as often as we can. However, and I just want to throw this out there, is it possible that we are so engaged with learning new things that we forget to refine the skills we're already good at? I believe this is the case for many people, and it definitely was for me. And so I've made a commitment to myself to build on my strengths and put more effort into refining the things I'm already good at. And here's an example. Habits shape our lives more than we probably realize. Our brains cling to them like newborns do their mother. Our bodies function because of them. I mean, our actions are influenced by them. See, how we think, how we act, and how we grow are all affected by these things we call habits or routines, a series of systems orchestrating this song we've titled life. I enjoy writing poetry, and as a poet, I've developed a skill and a deep interest in the spoken word and how we can use language and things like cadence and metaphors and silence to help us tell stories or express an idea. And so I've decided to build on that strength every day and at every opportunity because I enjoy using metaphors and cadence and the different elements of poetry within my videos and the conversations I have with you. Now, this isn't the only skill that I'm working to refine, but it's an easy example that you can witness in real time as you watch and listen to the things I create. So I want to encourage you to build on your strengths as well and to take it seriously, because ever since I made this commitment, I feel more confident in myself and my abilities, which is a massive win in my book. Our lives, in a sense, are a big map, let's say a Google map for reference. And point A is where we currently are in our life situations. And point B is where we want to be, where we want to go. And that is to be in a position where we're living a more intentional life that makes us happy. Now, how do you get from point A to point B? You have to travel across highways and down back roads, of course, but by adding values to your life, core values to your life, these things help aid us in that travel, right? They help aid and shape us and mold us into who we are so we can improve and grow and reach that ultimate point B, that intentional life that we're seeking. So how do we do this? The first thing you have to do is first determine what your core values are. See, several years ago, I shared the video that you were just listening to on this channel, and it's titled How to Live Out Your Values and Improve Your Life. And it was at this point on my journey toward a more intentional life that I realized the importance of knowing your core values and daily effort of prioritizing them. See, my core values are integrity, faith, family, and creativity. And these 4 core pillars guide just about everything I do, from the decisions I make to how I'm sustaining a clutter-free life. And I'll give you a quick example of each of these. But before I do, if you need help identifying your values, then check out my core values worksheet. It's free. Just go to ronaldlbanks.com/values. You can download a copy there. All right, when it comes to making decisions, I've developed a decision-making formula that I follow anytime I need additional reassurance or I just want that extra layer of confidence in a decision I'm making. And so part of this formula is asking myself, overall, will this decision pull me closer to my core values or away from them? And my answer to that question helps guide my final decision. Now, on the other end of this, my core values have played a major role in helping me to sustain a minimalist and clutter-free life. Because when I declutter, I'm doing so to create space and clarity and purpose. I'm letting go to promote the things I value. Now, in addition to this, my core values also guide my purchase decisions. Because whatever I decide to bring into my life, I want it to be in service of my values. I want it to help me prioritize the things I care about. As an example, I buy cameras and microphones because I'm a creative person. I like creating things. That's something I value. But we also have a speaker on display in our living area because my family enjoys listening to music and dancing and spending that quality time together, creating those silly memories. That's something we value. And there are many other things sprinkled throughout our home just like this that represent what I value and what my family values. I mean, this even boils down to the simplest things like the quality of my clothing. Because if I invest in quality pieces that I enjoy wearing, then I don't have to replace them as often. They're going to last. And therefore, I don't have a reason to own more clothes than I need. And as long as I continue to live with less across the board, then I'll have the space and time to prioritize the things I care about. Now, that brings us to today's sponsor, which is Cuts. Now, I have been a fan of Cuts t-shirts for the last 3 years, and they have become a staple in my everyday wardrobe because the quality is great, and that's something I really appreciate about them. Now, minimalism aside for a second, in general, I do not want a large wardrobe because I've been down that road before, and I just ended up with a whole bunch of stuff I did not wear, especially t-shirts. And so when it comes to the t-shirts that I wear today, I prefer basic colors and I want them to be comfortable and something that's going to hold up to everyday use. And for the last 3 years, Cuts has served me well. Now, Cuts does offer different colors and styles for both men and women. So if you're in the market for a great t-shirt that you can layer into your wardrobe, or if you're just curious about the many other styles they have available and you want to check them out, you can do so using my link in the description below. And as an added bonus, if you use promo code Ronald20, you'll get 20% off your purchase, which is pretty sweet. And that's it, my friend. Those are the 5 micro habits that I have made a commitment to. No additional fluff or getting sucked into the habit of chasing more habits. I hope you consider this approach, and if you do, let me know what habits you decide to focus on. Keep growing towards clarity, my friend, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.